In this video, we are going to talk about Python inheritance. This is syntax for Python inheritance. We have the derived class, we have base class. This is single inheritance. And if we want to use multiple inheritance, we put several base classes in the parentheses. This is the example of multiple inheritance. We have two base classes and we have one derived class. So here we can see that when we initiate a derived class, and we can see the attribute from the two base classes. Another concept is overriding and overloading. A derived class overrides an inherited attribute if it defines an attribute using the same name as the one already defined in the base class. So this is an example of overriding, because here in the derived class we override the init method of the base classes. The overriding is different from overloading. Overloading is the ability to define the same method with the same name but with a different number of arguments and types. It's the ability of one function to perform different tasks depending on the number of parameters or the type of the parameters. Another concept is a super function. When we use a super function, we are calling a parent method into a child method to make use of it. So here, if we use the super here, it refers to the base class. So it can help us to define the init function or the regular function of the derived class. The two built-in functions is instance and its subclass are used to check inheritance. Function isInheritance returns true if the object is an instance of the class or other class derived from it. So here we talk about the concept of data hiding. In Python, we use double underscore before the attribute's name, and those attributes will not be directly visible outside. For example, here we have this attribute with a double underscore before it, so we cannot access it outside. So if we want to print this private attribute, we cannot print it actually. So here, a trick to print it is we can put the function name before it with a one single underscore. So here we talk about the concept of private members. So we can make some of the instance variables of the parent class private by adding double underscore before its name, which won't be available to the child class. So here we have the parent class C and we have the child class D. So because here C D is actually a private attribute, so we cannot access it. So the inheritance design rules is that if a class adds an attribute to an object, the method defined in only that class should access the attribute directly. If other classes, including derived and subclasses, need to update the information stored in that attribute, then the defining class should define methods that do the job, which the other class should call. So if we have this inheritance hierarchy, we have the network to visualize this hierarchy. So here we have the four class, and we have because every class has a parent class as an object class. So here the C is a derived class from B1 and B2, and B1 is a derived class from B1A. So here we have this network to realize this multiple inheritance. So how to locate the attribute in multiple inheritance hierarchy? So Python first tries to find the attribute in the instance object. If this fails, it performs a pre-order search. in the network. So what is the true meaning of the is-instance function? So when we know the pre-order search for to locate the attribute, actually the is-instance function also returns true if type O is any class derived from C if we call this function, meaning type O is derived from class C in one or more steps. So also here we talk about the exception and inheritance. In fact, all exceptions are arranged in an inheritance hierarchy. Technically, if X refers to a raised exception object except for this statement handles any exception class for which is-instance X4 is true. So for example, here we have this inheritance tree. So we have this object class and this base class, this fire arrow. All the other arrow are derived from it. So if we call except input arrow, actually it supports the handling of both input arrow and EOF arrow, because the EOF arrow and input arrow, they are all derived from the input arrow.